The quarterback that's gone no huddle the most in the league is Jayden Daniels. Think about that. A rookie quarterback who's had more no huddle snaps than any other quarterback in the league.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday presented by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Got a college game Saturday night, Oregon State and Nevada on CBS Sports Network. First weekend in a while where I'm not doubling up, so I'll actually be back home on Sunday, which is nice. Love Thursdays because we have Greg Cosell. By the way, programming note, Monday night in the booth, I was doing Chiefs Saints, talking with the great Kevin Harlan, told him how Thursdays I have Greg Cosell. He put an alert in his phone to make sure he checks out every Thursday Ross Tucker Football Podcast. So, hello, Kevin. Welcome to the family. He loves him some Greg Cosell, so he wants to make sure that he gets a chance to listen every week. Love those of you that check us out on social media. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. And if you engage with at Ross Tucker Pod in any way, especially a comment or a reply or a quote post, you might be tomorrow's winner. I love making you guys winners. I love sending you some of these incredible press passes that I've picked up so far this season. Just such a cool thing to have in your house. Those of you that take advantage of any of our sponsors, how about just getting the free estimate at westshorehome.com/Ross? And I mentioned the YouTube growing by the week, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. You make a comment, you could get one of those video shout outs, which I love doing. At any rate, it's Thursday. That means it's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Greg Cosell, of course, presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Greg, here we are, week 6, and we've got 1, 2, 3 new quarterbacks, 3 new starting quarterbacks. What is that? Almost 10% of the league has new starting quarterbacks this week. I guess we'll start with the one we've kind of been waiting for, and that's in New England, where Gerard Mayo, their head coach, has made the move. They're going to go with their number 3 overall pick, Drake May, as they take on the Texans on Sunday. He hasn't played this year, Greg, so I guess your thoughts on May, maybe a refresher from college or the preseason. I was certainly impressed by some of the things he did against the Eagles in the preseason and just kind of the situation he finds himself in against the Texans.
Yeah, I thought, Ross, he was the toolsiest quarterback coming out of college. Great size, and that's a trait. I had a chance to stand next to him at the scouting combine in Indianapolis. He's a legit 6'4". He's big. He's put together. He's probably in the 220, 225 range. He's got a big arm. He's got mobility. Unfortunately, he's being put into a really difficult situation as a starting quarterback. And with young quarterbacks, so much of whether they succeed or fail, or struggle, I shouldn't say fail, struggle has to do with the rest of their team. And this is a team, as you know, whose O-line has lost the center, Andrews, I believe, for the season. He's a really solid player, controls everything for them. So they're playing with a subpar offensive line. I know Ramondre Stevenson, I believe, has a high ankle sprain, and I doubt he's going to go this week. So this is a team that's kind of lacking in offensive weapons and does not have a very good O-line. So he's in a very, very difficult spot. So, and I'm being totally honest here, it's going to be very difficult to truly evaluate him as a player because he's in a difficult spot and he's playing in his first game against a really good defensive team with a really good defensive coach in DeMeco Ryans, who does a lot of difficult things for an offense and a quarterback in those critical high leverage down and distance situations. So this is going to be a tough spot for Drake May.
You know, Greg, we've been doing this a long time, and I'm still not sure that we have the answer as to whether or not you're better off playing
Yeah.
a young guy like Drake May and having him take his lumps, having him learn some lessons. You know, on the one hand, Greg, I do believe that there are certain rites of passage or lessons and or mistakes that young quarterbacks have to make. They got to get fooled by certain coverages. They got to miss certain blitzes, right? Like
No
that's
question.
just part of it, I feel like. And so on the one hand, if you're the Patriots, it's like let's get those out of the way now, right? Let's start learning lessons now.
Yeah.
On the other hand, to your point, boy, you know, if the O-line's not good and the weapons aren't good and the quarterback is making a lot of mistakes and getting hit a lot, you know, you wonder what that has, the impact that has on him moving forward. And I swear, Greg, we still don't know the answer to that.
There's
as to which
examples in
one's
history
better.
on both sides. I mean, you look at Troy Aikman, a Hall of Famer. I think he was 1 for 15 in his rookie season, and he took a lot of hits. And then you look at Carson Palmer, didn't play at all his rookie season. You look at Patrick Mahomes, didn't play his rookie season until the final game. So there's both sides of the equation here. There's no right or wrong answer. My guess is most quarterbacks, maybe not coaches, but most quarterbacks would tell you that they want to play and go through the process as they're playing.
I would think so, yeah. It's just, it's interesting. You know, both you and Emery Hunt on the College Draft podcast were pretty high on Spencer Rattler and some of the things you saw from him in college. And then certainly that was even before he had a really nice preseason. It's interesting. I was in the booth with Kevin Monday night, mentioned that. And when Derek Carr got hurt, Jake Haener was the backup. Jake Haener came in and finished that game for the Saints. But now that they have a week to prepare for this game against the Bucs, and now that you know, they know it sounds like Carr's out maybe for at least 2 games. I believe the Saints play on Thursday night next week. So they're probably going to give Carr 2 games and let him have that extra time to heal. They're going to go with Spencer Rattler instead of Haener, which is interesting. What did you like or what did you see from Rattler coming out of college and or, Greg, you know, what you saw in the preseason potentially?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Haener because he was a fun watch in college at Fresno as well. A really interesting guy. But when you talk about Rattler, you're talking about a very gifted thrower of the football. There's never been a question about his ability to deliver the football. There were times I thought watching him in college that he was a little bit of a see-it, throw-it quarterback, meaning he did not play with high-level anticipation. We'll see how that plays out now that he's playing in a regular season game. But then watching him in the preseason, and again, when you watch preseason, I'm not concerned about who he's playing against. I'm just watching him. I'm evaluating him. I learned long ago by people smarter than I that when you evaluate a quarterback, you put him in a vacuum. You isolate him as a player. He could be throwing to you and I, Ross. It doesn't matter. You're evaluating the quarterback. And I thought that he showed some better examples of seeing it quickly, throwing with a better sense of timing. We'll see how he plays now that he's going to have to throw the ball, I'm sure, at least 25 times in the game on Sunday. So, but there's no question about his physical gifts throwing a football. He's got a compact delivery. He's an easy thrower. His first year at Oklahoma, there were people who were comparing him to Patrick Mahomes because he moved around a lot and made outstanding throws on the run. I'm very leery of making those kinds of comparisons, but stylistically, he's capable of playing that way.
He's not a big dude.
No.
I did his U.S. Army Bowl when he was a senior. And, you know, he had committed to Oklahoma like in 10th grade, and he was the top guy.
He was the top quarterback in the country coming out of high school in Arizona.
Yeah, and he could really throw it. Like, he could really whip it. But I think the year before, well, no, it would have been a few years before, was Trevor Lawrence. And, like, Trevor Lawrence came into the room, you're like, oh, wow, okay. And when Rattler came into the room, it just, but listen, that's how a lot of these guys are now. You know, they're not all these big 6'4", 6'5" guys like Drake May you were talking about earlier.
No, and height, I think, has become less of an issue for some in the equation of evaluation.
Right. I do think it's interesting that Haener was the backup to go into the game.
Yeah.
But Rattler's the guy that they want to start. I'm curious about that because they're telling you something if Haener's the backup, if Carr gets hurt in game. But then if they have someone starting a game and they go with Rattler, they're telling you something else, right? It's almost like, Greg, they felt more comfortable with Haener without getting reps during the week and coming off the bench, but they probably think there's more upside or potential with Rattler, and they want to see him start instead of Haener.
And to be cliched, Haener's kind of that gutsy, moxie player. He's sort of the Case Keenum, Taylor Heineke type, that he probably is better to go into a game if he has to go into the game in the third quarter.
Got it. All right, there's one more that we need to get to. The Steelers play the Raiders. I can't even imagine how many Steelers fans will be at Allegiant Stadium I can imagine because there was a ton of Browns fans there a couple weeks ago. And the Raiders are moving on from Gardner Minshew, at least for now, to go with Aiden O'Connell, who Josh McDaniels really liked. And if I remember, Greg, I thought he did some positive things last year at times, for the Raiders.
He's probably at his core a more rhythmic player than Gardner Minshew. And I think that that's something that they're obviously looking for. Obviously they're not a really good team, Ross. And I think when you're playing with Minshew, who's shown he can start in this league, but I think most coaches would say he's probably at his best as a backup. O'Connell, I think most coaches might say the same. Obviously, he has not played enough in the league. But you're dealing with two guys that if they were to be successful over a longer period of time would need to be on really good teams. Neither one would be a lead dog kind of quarterback. So they would need a really strong run game. They would need a strong defense to keep them in games. In other words, they need to be in a situation where they could be controlled to some degree and manipulated to the point where they did not have to be the driving force of the offense or of the team. And the Raiders are not really good in either of those categories right now, running the ball or playing great defense. So in some ways, you could have predicted that this would happen.
I think we know what Minshew is, and I think there's some value in them giving O'Connell a decent amount of starts to know for sure what he is or can be.
I would agree with that.
I think we probably already think that he's a backup, but Minshew's been around so long that his story is kind of written. O'Connell, I don't know that he's played enough to know for sure what he can be, and I think that's probably what they want to find out. Yeah. But it seems pretty clear the Raiders will be in the quarterback market after the season. It'd be surprising if they're not. I want to make sure, Greg, we get to the Jets and the Bills.
Yeah, there's actually that game's really the other game that just really struck me watching the tape this week. And I'm sorry to jump in, but I just feel like it needs to be talked about. One of my most fun watches this year, okay, and was watching the Ravens offense versus the Bengals defense. Okay, I got to tell you, Lou Anarumo, I thought, and I know the score doesn't reflect this. He worked so hard and did such a great job with so many multiple front looks, multiple coverage looks, disguise, late rotation. He did so many good things, and I thought Lamar Jackson was so good in this game. I mean, Lamar's had many good games in the league, so, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best game I've ever seen him play. But given what Lou Anarumo did, and like I said, I thought he did really, really good things. I thought Lamar was absolutely fantastic in this game. And it was a joy to watch both sides of the ball for someone like myself watching tape all the time from just a tactical perspective on each side. And the way Lamar Jackson played, it was a joy to watch.
Wow. That's cool. You don't get that excited very often.
No, it was.
You don't out of nowhere blurt out how much you like
No,
a game like
I
that.
felt like I really wanted to talk about that because I actually watched that tape yesterday, and it took me way longer than I kind of had allotted because I just kept watching the same plays over and over, and I think it took me 3.5 hours to go through that side of the ball, and it was really an enjoyable watch from a tactical perspective.
Well, listen, I'm glad you said that because those are both games I wanted to talk about. And I love talking to Greg while I'm thinking about drinking some Labatt Blue Lights, watching Thursday Night Football tonight, living life to the power of we. Probably just by myself, if I'm being honest. But you guys can do it with friends. Always enjoy responsibly beer. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Well, I had those two games written down, Greg. So let's dive into Commanders Ravens. You already talked about Ravens offense and what they look like against Cincinnati. Anything else jump out to you about that game?
Yeah, I think what really stands out to me about that game on the other side of the ball is the quarterback that's gone no huddle the most in the league is Jayden Daniels. Think about that, a rookie quarterback who's had more no huddle snaps than any other quarterback in the league. Now, obviously, we know that the offensive coordinator can talk to him until there's 15 seconds left in the play clock, but still, to give put that on a rookie quarterback, okay? And we're not late in the season now, we're early in the season. And to ask a rookie quarterback to play that many snaps of no huddle, that just speaks to the intelligence of Jayden Daniels. And that's really, really impressive to me as well. Besides the fact that his tape obviously looks very, very good in the way in which he's playing. But it's funny. Normally what happens, Ross, when I watch tape is I notice something and then I go look at the stats. I don't look at the stats before I watch the game. I kind of let the tape tell me what the game looks like. And then when I see something, I go, oh, I'm seeing a lot of no huddle. And then I go look. And he's had more no huddle snaps than any quarterback in the league. And I just think that's really impressive. It speaks so highly of the kid.
Wow. I wonder, was he no huddle a lot at LSU?
I'm sure he was, because a lot of college, they don't huddle. I mean, a lot of these.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm wondering is
never huddle until they get to the NFL.
Well, so I think no huddle is really impressive, Greg, if he's the one calling the plays.
And we don't know that. We don't know that for sure. But the bottom line is, if you're going to go no huddle, at some point the quarterback has to be able to look at the defense and say, on some plays anyway, hey, this play is not going to work. At some point, we don't know the percentage that happens, but I think that has to happen somewhere along the line.
What about, Greg, Monday night? It is a big one. It's the Jets and the Bills, both of whom are kind of struggling right now, and the Jets made the head coaching change, moving on from Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I thought that the Bills' offense was not very good this week. I thought, look, Josh Allen, it's funny how this works. 2 weeks ago, everybody's saying he's the MVP, and then this week I'm hearing people say they have a Josh Allen problem. That kind of talk is that's pointless to even respond to. But the point is, Josh Allen is the kind of quarterback that always walks kind of a fine line between playing improvisationally outside of structure and being absolutely special at any given time. But also there are times when he sort of crosses that line and ends up moving unnecessarily, not letting things develop. And he did that last week. But the other thing I would say about the Bills offense is I don't really see, and again, maybe Joe Brady would tell me I'm crazy, but I don't really see a really well-defined intermediate pass game in terms of the concepts. I'm not talking about execution of it. I'm talking about the concepts. And that's something you need to have in the NFL. So I'm real curious to see as they continue to progress if that happens. It's easy to say that he's playing with receivers he's not comfortable with. And believe me, that's a factor. If you're not comfortable as a quarterback throwing to guys, that changes everything about you, the way you play the position. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think Josh last week definitely was moving way too much. And then if you don't make those special plays, you don't really have anything.
Well, I thought he really missed Shakir. Shakir is like his
That's right, you did
blanket.
That game, so you saw it, yeah.
Yes, Shakir is like his security blanket, and he didn't have him. And I think that was You could tell that bothered him. I got to get your thoughts, Greg, on tonight's game. Seahawks, Niners.
Yeah.
Niners coming off another bad loss.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Niners, there's not a mystery really to the way they play. I think offensively, look, obviously they make tweaks every week based on the opponent, but I don't think there's a lot of mystery to the way they play offense. And their offense really wasn't bad last week. A lot of things happened in that game that were kind of fluky. Obviously, there was a tip ball for an interception. They lost their field goal kicker. We'd probably be having a totally different conversation. There was a play at the end of the game right before the Cardinals converted on fourth down. It was a third down where they blitzed, and Campbell tipped the ball. And if he doesn't tip the ball was thrown right to Fred Warner. He would have picked it off and run in for a touchdown, and we'd be having a totally different conversation. So I don't see the Niners as problematic, even though their record might be at the moment. The Seahawks, I think, are still a little bit of a work in progress right now with a new coach. They've got to be able to run the ball. You can't have Geno Smith drop back as many times. And I love Geno. I think he's really developed into a higher level NFL quarterback, but they have no run game and based on volume. And I think they're good enough to have one. I think that the new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, who came from college, this is the NFL. You have to have some kind of run game.
Check him out on social media. He is the man everybody loves listening or watching when Greg Cosell comes on the show, at Greg Cosell. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Don't miss the new Hulu original drama La Maquina, starring Diego Luna, Gael Garcia Bernal, and Asa Gonzalez. La Maquina is the first Spanish-language original series from Hulu. In their long-awaited on-screen reunion, Gael and Diego play lifelong friends, one a boxer and the other his crafty manager, making one last attempt at glory in the ring. But to make it to fight night, they must confront a mysterious underworld organization raising the stakes to life or death. All episodes of La Maquina are streaming now on Hulu. I love tailgating, I love contests, and I love Smirnoff because they're giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience. From tickets to sideline passes and much more. Just head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th to enter for your chance to win. Smirnoff, We Do Game Days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. Ends 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas, Incorporated, New York, New York.
Tux Takes.
All right, Ross, want your thoughts on something you and Greg talked about a lot today? New quarterbacks, they're starting in New Orleans, Las Vegas. Spencer Rattler will fill in for the injured Derek Carr. Aiden O'Connell, he's getting his shot with the Raiders in place of Gardner Minshew.
Right. I think I said to Greg, I understand. I think Minshew's probably better than Aiden O'Connell. I think there's a reason why Minshew was starting instead of Aiden O'Connell. I think Minshew probably gives him a better chance to win. But I think the Raiders organization, fans, players need to see that for themselves. And the Rattler thing is fascinating. Jake Haener, I'm dying to know, like, from a player's perspective, did Jake Haener know this was going to be the deal? Like, did Jake Haener know that if Carr missed a game, it wouldn't be him, it would be Rattler? I mean, no wonder Haener was trying to play his you-know-what off Monday night when he got in the game. I actually thought he did some positive things. I thought that was a really good throw that probably should have been hauled in. I can't remember if it was Olave or whoever for Haener when he got in the game. But that, you almost feel like if you're Haener, like, that was my chance, that one series at the end of a Monday night game where we're getting our you-know-what kicked.
We got a game tonight, Ross. The 49ers, they're facing the Seattle Seahawks. Who do you like in this one?
Going to make this my Thursday Night Football DraftKings pick because I do every week. Presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I love the Niners in this game. They can't lose another game like this. They can't get down to 2-4. The Seahawks feel like they're kind of going the wrong way, really on both sides of the ball. At least they had a shootout against the Lions a couple weeks ago, but against the Giants, they really couldn't do much offensively. They were getting beat up. and then even the Giants moved the ball on them. So I think the Niners win. Wouldn't be surprised if the Niners win going away. Give me San Francisco, let's say 27-17 Niners.
We've got some injuries across the league. Bengals defensive back Dax Hill, Cardinals right guard Will Hernandez, and Panther center Austin Corbett are among players that are done for the year.
Right. Always a bummer. Not good. This is what happens, though, in the NFL, right? Next man up. Every team usually loses a couple guys for the year. And so it's never easy to lose your center or your right guard or even your DB. But honestly, Jack, this is how I started a bunch of games, right? Like somebody would get hurt, I would go in. Although sometimes it wasn't season ending, but when they came back, they just left me in there, which I guess meant I was doing a good job.
Some more injury notes. Cowboys reportedly got good news on injured rookie defensive lineman Marshawn Kneeland, who is not out for the year but is placed on IR. Others that are placed on the IR are Raiders defensive tackle Christian Wilkins and Texans wideout Nico Collins.
Well, those last two are huge, right? I mean, Nico Collins leads the NFL in receiving yards. He has played fantastic. So him being out at least 4 weeks with that hamstring is a gigantic loss for the Texans. I mean, huge. Christian Wilkins is one of the, 3 best players for the Raiders. Max Crosby, Devontae Adams. They haven't really had many games with a healthy Wilkins in there with a healthy Crosby to really have those guys, wreak havoc on the opponent like they were hoping to have. The Kneeland thing is interesting because it's, I think, a meniscus repair or something. And the Cowboys, there are reports out there that are saying 6 to 8 weeks. But Dr. Chow at Pro Football Doc, SportsInjuryCentral.com, seems to think he might be done for the year. So that is something to keep an eye on. By the way, Jabril Peppers was placed on the commissioner's exempt list after some really ugly charges from over the weekend. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. Absolutely love the written word. Love when you guys get signed autographs from me, at least those of you that want them. Why don't you combine all those things by getting an incredible gift for someone at myfrontpagestory.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza